the territory. Good morning to the testifiers. First thing, I see that Mr. Turnbull from WAPA, the chairman, he's not here. Mr. CEO, is there someone else here that could give me answers on it? Because I really wanted to hear some stuff from the board itself, because they're a critical part in how this state of emergency runs.
No, I'm here from management.
Is there a reason? Do you know why he's not here?
No, I couldn't speak to that.
The last time he was here, I appreciated his testimony because he was very transparent in expressing the facts that, as the chairman of the board of WAPA, he was not really privy to a lot of the information the incident command was doing at the time. Have you guys fixed that problem?
Yes.
Where you have started to share information with the board?
Laviolum Turner has been attending the incident command meetings.
Excellent.
So he's actually been brought into the fold in that regards.
That is beautiful, because it's very important that that board fully understands what's happening during the state of emergency, because that board is responsible to run WAPA. And if they're not getting the information that they need when it's time to transition out of this incident command, how are they going to know what's happening? So I do appreciate the fact that he was brought into the fold so the board could fully understand what this incident command is doing. The second set of questions, I want to go straight to this BR, bill request number 24-1293. I want to put on the record the reason why we had to pause earlier is because there were at least 6 members in this institution that had no idea and had never seen this piece of legislation. So I'm happy that we were able to get copies of it. While the BR was on the agenda, several of us never saw it. So I can't be listening to testimony and getting information on something I had no idea what it was about. But going to that, Mr. Boshelty from the Tourism Department, what numbers do you have in regards to, from 1999, the District of St. Thomas, St. John was able to allow for casinos to be utilized on cruise ships while they're docked. That's 13 years of data I'm sure you guys were collecting so we could make an informed decision today. Do you have those numbers to tell us what kind of benefit was realized? Because the majority of the cruise ships do come to the District of St. Thomas, St. John. So in 13 years, we should have been able to realize some kind of improvement so we could say, hey, these things are going to be able to extend to St. Croix.
Yes, Senator, thank you for the question. I don't have any concrete data on it. It's a situation, even when I was the president CEO of WICO, it is one piece in the reason why ships come to the territory, and specifically St. Thomas. I don't believe, in my experiences with the cruise lines, in this particular district, that is the driving force of why visitors come.
It wasn't a question about the driving force, because the benefit was for them to stay extra.
Right.
So I'm saying, what kind of data was collected in regards to that to see that these benefits were realized, since this district has been able to do it for 13 years?
Yes, Senator. Like I said, from my perspective, I wasn't around when the law was enacted, so I don't know what the basis was.
Well, no, as the tourism commissioner, this is an ongoing situation, so I'm assuming that the information and data would have been collected. Under the Casino Control Commission, do you guys collect that data and information? Because if that's the case, has anyone come to you from the cruise ships to take out licenses, or have you had to govern any of these cruise ships over the past 13 years in the District of St. Thomas, St. John that stayed over to conduct casino business?
Well, Senator, the Casino Control Commission only has jurisdiction for casinos on St. Croix. It does not extend to St. Thomas, St. John. Therefore, we will not have that kind of data.
So who would have the jurisdiction over if the law existed? And so clearly, if nobody has it, in 13 years, nothing has materialized. So they basically, for 13 years, were not coming into this territory and utilizing and staying extra long because of casinos. But in your testimony, you said that we need parity across the board. The majority of cruise ships come to this district for a ratio of 1 to 10. So if we're going to do parity across the board, why after 30 years do you think it is time that we open up casinos to the District of St. Thomas, St. John? Because if this was originally created for economic development, and 9 out of 10 of the cruise ships come to St. Thomas, St. John District, explain to me a little bit more about that economic development. And after 30 years, how many cruise casinos do we see in the District of St. Croix?
The original intent of the Casino Resort and Control Act was to stimulate hotel development in
Yes.
the District of St. Croix.
Have we seen that?
No, we have not. We started out with DV, and we've since added Caravel. Not much more than that has happened.
Okay, in 30 years.
What's your credit card debt balance? If it,
But still, could I just wrap up?
Please wrap up, Senator.
But still, the majority of the tourists that we were supposed to be targeting 30 years ago comes to another district. So how, if we want to do parity across the board and clean this up, because the monies that come in from these tourists that go to these things, don't the monies go to the general fund that benefit the entire territory? Now, I'm not supporting either way, but this is information that should have been collected over the past 30 and 13 years. So I could make better decisions on behalf of this territory. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Francis.
So happy he put that on the record. What I wanted to find out a little bit more about data, does anyone have information in regards to if the Casino Control Commission only deals with casinos in St. Croix, are you aware of who deals with the licensure for these casinos when the cruise ships open in our port after 5? As well as, does anyone have any information as to the tax revenues or impact and what potential benefit that even the District of St. Thomas, St. John gets by this? Because if we're going to be expanding it, there has to be some information and data to justify why this was even done in the first place. After 13 years, somebody has to have something. So this between anybody.
Senator, get to your question, please.
I already asked the question.
What is the question?
Does anyone have any data as in regards to tax revenues,
Very well.
the basis, and
Salem Furniture Center
issued licenses in regards for these cruise ships to conduct business after 5 in this district?
Very well. You may respond.
Yeah, Senator, I don't have any information on that from a Department of Tourism standpoint.
Well, thank you. At this time, the chair will recommend.
To put on the record is that I'm very much concerned in regards to the issue where we pay out, because at the end of the day, I think that onus falls on us. Because if this government consistently gives out 100 million, 30 million, and we don't put legislation in place to do a wash, that's our responsibility. At the end of the day, if we feel that you guys owe us, so we owe you and we've given you money, we should put it in writing, because clearly we can't leave it up to you guys to do it. You're going to come back and ask us for the money, even if we gave you money yesterday. And my other concern is dealing with the estimation. The last time I spoke to the CEO, executive director, you guys did share with us right now the numbers fluctuate as to the estimation. At one point, one CEO said it was at 45%. When you guys were here the last time, you said because you got meter readers, it went down to as low as 28% and it fluctuates monthly. What percentage is it this month or last month, so we could know if there's any kind of improvement? Because that's all people care about. They want to know when this estimation is going to stop. Because my bill went up $400 and I'm very upset about it, and I ain't do anything different.
So let me, thank you for the question. Let me see if I could provide some clarity. Rather than talking about fluctuating percentages, we have about, the number was what, about 22,000 customers that are being read remotely, that the system works and they're being billed through our AMI system. We probably have a total of about 55,000 customers. A portion of those, we have meters that aren't working. We have on order 1,100 meters to start to replace the meters that aren't working. We're trying to ultimately purchase 11,000 meters to replace non-functioning meters or new meters that need to be installed. So the way we're going to be tracking our progress is changing out meters that have stopped working, because the AMI system is continuing to fail. So on every month,
Hi there. If you'd love
able to read, because what is the heat and humidity or whatever the systems, the modules are failing. So we have to replace those with a manual read until we can actually revamp the whole system. So we're actually working on that, and I can give you hard numbers as to how many meters are actually able to be read remotely right now, and how many are being manually read on a monthly basis, and we hope to see that number climbing every time I speak to you. That number should have gone up incrementally. Right now, it's about 30-something thousand meters in all, about 32,000 meters that we're able to read on a monthly basis.
Very well. Let's move on to.
Very quickly, I know that there were some assessments done for the AMI. To the chair, could we make that request of the testifiers that we could get copies of those assessments for the AMI system?
Yeah, we've noted the request previously made.
Okay. And the main question I want to ask, we keep having a lot of discussion about the errors that miraculously have gone overboard over the last couple of months. And what I want to know is how exactly do you handle it? Do you have if a customer comes in, a bill was say $100, and all of a sudden they get a $300 bill, and do you go over a series of months? How do you handle and fix that error for the consumer? Because I think that's what a lot of people are trying to understand, because I keep hearing error, but how exactly do you analyze and resolve it?
Lorraine Kelly, Interim Chief Financial Officer. So when a customer calls, emails, or comes in and asks, that situation, and they believe they have an error, the first thing that we do is we look at their bill to see whether the usage is appropriate or not. We forward that to the revenue assurance team to go and do a review, and or the meter reading team to do another read of the meter to make sure that that's accurate. Sometimes when we do that, we find that the meter either didn't give a good read, and then we would do a new read and we would correct that and give a credit back to the customer. Sometimes, obviously, that read is accurate and the customer will owe that amount. If a credit is due, we have a department called customer accounts. We send the information, customer service sends the information to customer accounts. They review the customer's bill. They receive the information from, the new meter read, and they put an adjustment onto the customer's account. The customer will then receive that credit on their bill in their next bill cycle, which could potentially be within that next 30 days when they get their next bill. Did that answer all of your question?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I move to waive Rule 403, 404, 405, and 509A of the Rules of the 35th Legislature to Special Order Bill Number 350248, a resolution petitioning the United States Congress to amend the Revised Organic Act of the Virgin Islands to authorize the people of the Virgin Islands to elect an Attorney General of the Virgin Islands pursuant to Rule 509B and be placed on the agenda as an item before the last item. I so move.
Second.
Good afternoon once again to my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to staff. I rise in support of several of the pieces of legislation in this block. 35-0031, I think it's a grave improvement when we take the opportunity to update our code as it relates to the protection of our children. Unfortunately, sometimes adults do heinous things to our children and we have to protect them at all costs. And amending the laws in this territory to make sure that they are protected is a definite plus. As it relates to 35-0283, I definitely support that. As an institution, we worked diligently last term on creating the laws for cannabis, and we did definitely have to do some cleanup pieces of legislation to make sure that this moved forward in our industry, and this piece of legislation does that. As it relates to 35-0286, I had a great time that day as We listened to the stories in regards to our honoring of Judge Vern Antonio Hodge and naming the Superior Court after him. It was a definite plus to really listen to the history of the Virgin Islands and how far we've come. And I think when we take time out to honor individuals that have helped build this territory, it's a definite plus and a part of our Virgin Islands history. As it relates to 35-0289, I am definitely in support of this. 18, you're still a teenager, and I think it's a definite plus to move it up to 21. Give them a little bit more time. I want to also touch on 35-0340 in regards to the state of the emergency. We had an opportunity to listen to the testimony here. I listened diligently. I'm not convinced. As it relates to 35-0389, this is the casino one. I asked a lot of questions that couldn't be answered here today. From 1999, apparently, this has been available in the District of St. Thomas, St. John. No one could tell me who is controlling it. No one could tell me who's dealing with licensing. Nobody could tell me who or what type of benefit as it relates to taxes that we're generating. But we want to go ahead and extend it to St. Croix. Now, they said within the past 13 years, but from 1999, that's 25 years that this has been authorized. And if within 13 years we still don't have any data, convince me, how does this benefit St. Croix? I personally believe that if the majority, based on the Bureau of Economic Research and even the Port Authority, overnight visitors and even visitors that come to the territory, the majority of them is in one district, but for 30 years we have it blocked off to another district for casinos, when the entire purpose of that piece of legislation was for economic growth and development. If you see something needs to be improved, I think we should improve it across the board. And the same way that Mr. Pickering from the Casino Control Commission shared that there should be everything across the board, we as a community need to consider it or leave it alone. As it relates to the 35-0391, I do support this piece of legislation. It was vetoed earlier, but we did the necessary improvements and we brought it back as an institution, so I will definitely be supporting it. 35-0390, which is similar. Last session, we did pass the piece of legislation in regards to the money transfers. We did some cleanup, and we are not overriding that piece of legislation. They brought a new one completely, and I definitely will be supporting that with the improvements where it's only going to deal with monies going out of the territory internationally. That is the key. So I will vote accordingly when it comes to all these pieces of legislation, and thank you very much, Mr. President, for the time.
Thank you very much, Senator Alma Francis Heidegger, for your time there.
This institution, I'm very leery of us coming before this body and offering this governor a state of emergency. We are fully aware that we have been in a state of emergency when it comes to WAPA, but the problem that when we give him an open door policy as it relates to these types of things, you also give him a blank check to be shifting monies around in this territory unchecked. And for me, that is a very dangerous situation. The original laws on the books specifically stated that these state of emergencies are supposed to be turned over for 30 days. You guys, in your wisdom, have decided to give him 90, 60, and all of these crazy numbers without any type of reporting to this institution so we could fully understand what this governor is doing. 30 seconds. During his entire first term, he had carte blanche state of emergencies, and we all saw where that got us, okay? So I don't want to be in a situation where you have all of this information and you don't even want to put it on the record so we could fully understand what you're attempting to amend as it relates to the state of emergency. I reserve the balance of my time.
What time remains?
It's a perfect example of why we don't get anything done. You don't have information, and you don't even want me or the public.
Your time has expired, Senator. Thank you. Senator James, you have 1 minute, 35 seconds.
Colleagues, I'm just asking if you really intend to come back here every 30 days or 60 days, whatever it is, be my guest. And I'm just here to offer the amendment. Thank you, Mr. President, for the time.
I don't know if we live in La La Land or we are not fully aware of how this governor has been functioning. We seem to keep relinquishing power in this institution and handing it over to a person that don't tell us he don't care about his legacy. He gonna do what he want for the rest of his term. And I just do not trust this individual to be relinquishing any power that I have that could potentially protect the people of this territory. Because at the end of the day, if we're going to do this, why don't we relinquish all our power on leasing and zoning? Let property and procurement do what they want.
30 seconds.
I reserve the balance of my time.
How much time remains for Senator?
Thank you, Mr. President. As my colleague said earlier, I'm just moving amendment along. So I reserve the balance of my time.
How much time remains for Senator?
I don't know what to do in this place. All I'm going to say, at the end of the day, I think as an institution, we need to be very cautious. If you understand what easements are, that means any property that this governor wants to just impose upon, he could do it without our knowledge, without our consent. And then all of a sudden, the people we represent will be coming down on us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator.
It was recommended by Property and Procurement in conjunction with our legal counsel, so I reserve the balance of my time. I return the balance of my time. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Before we go to
The chair to legal counsel.
you have to stand.
Oh, Lord. I think in we and point of inquiry to the chair to legal counsel. So the fact that the legislature already deals with leases and zoning and all these things, wouldn't it have been more appropriate that if there's anything accompanying these things that potentially need to be done, that it would be best vested into the legislature versus it being done separately with the governor, since all those things already come here?
Through the chair to Senator Francis Heiliger, you have to understand the concept that we're talking about. What you refer to with respect to leases is essentially permission for one party to use property for a specific period of time for a specific purpose. That is a use. An easement is not a use. It is a right of way to allow one person to access the property of another. There is no ownership that is being exchanged. There's no use that's being exchanged. It is simply a right of way. And this body, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And this body, to the extent that there's any exchange of property ownership, it must be approved by this body. To the extent that there is a lease of property, it must be approved by this body. Any sort of conveyance, ownership change, or anything of that nature must be approved by this body, and the statute is clear. However, an easement is simply a right of way. There's nothing that's being exchanged. That's why it's treated differently as everything else.
And I'm fully aware of what an easement is. My concern is to give authority to access property, because the legislature gives the authority to utilize property through leases. But when you also do an easement, you're doing access to property. So my concern is that when you put that in the power of one person's hand, I am asking you, can the legislature and the laws be amended to give that power to this body that fully represent the people of this territory to make an overall decision versus just putting it into the hands of one individual, which is the governor? Can the law stipulate that?
Through the chair to Senator Francis Heiliger, the law can be amended to give this body the authority to approve easements. The point is that the way the law is structured and in the construct of the law is that this body approves anything having to do with leasing of property, conveyances of property, anything having to do with change of ownerships and so forth. That's what this body is responsible and has authority to approve.
And we can also have the authority.
Please let him finish.
Because an easement does not fall within that category, and the law does not in any way speak to that. That's why this amendment was drafted. Now, to the extent that this body may want to also approve easements, you may do that. But again, the reason why it's done like this, there is a distinction between a conveyance and an easement. There's a total distinction. That's why it's done the way it is.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. President, for giving me the time. And again, this is the body that passes laws. And every law that is in the VI code was created by senators, and we could alter them just like how we created them. And it is my concern, once again, that I think if we're going to be doing easements and giving access to people's property as well, it should be conveyed within this institution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Senator Maurice James, you had a